Sport has the power to change the world.
Well, if the saying is true that cold hands mean a warm heart, then the heart of Emirates Airline Park, home of the Golden Lions rugby team, was burning bright on the 18th of July, Mandela Day this year. That's the day that Laureus turned the rugby pitch into a sports hub to bring together all their youth outreach projects for one long, glorious afternoon of light-hearted fun. From human foosball to MMA and boxing workouts, all the way to playing in a blow-up squash court, little kids and young adults came together to forget hardship for an afternoon and unite in celebration of the spirit of sport. Morne du Plessis is chairman of Laureus South Africa. He is also a member of the 1995 World Cup winning Springbok management team, which beat the All Blacks at what was then Ellis Park. Fitting then that he kicked off proceedings, recalling that day Madiba unified a packed stadium and the country behind the box.
We had an incredible tour this morning, and to go through where Madiba started his law practice, where he was on trial, the Gandhi Square, all the history we went through today, and just on this special day, it really was special for those of us that were privileged to be on that tour. And for me, the last stop of that tour was just behind you here. There's a change room where the home team, South Africa, or I think the Golden Lions might use it as well. It's the home change room, and that's where we were in. And I went there and stood in front of that door, and it's the same door. It's exactly the same color it was so many years ago when that knock came onto the door. And I opened it. The Springboks were inside waiting for this epic battle against the All Blacks. And I saw this wonderful beaming face of President Mandela asking me if he could please come in to see the players. And he walked around the change room, and there was a burden taken off the shoulders of those players as he went round to every single one of them and wished them well. And I think at that moment we all thought and knew and believed that it was possible to win that game. But as I walked down and walked up as a player, and as we walked out, I heard 60,000 South Africans, and you have to understand the context of the time, chanting Nelson, Nelson, Nelson. And that was probably one of the greatest moments certainly I've ever lived. And I think Rudolph and those players of 95 as well. So 5 years later, President Mandela meets a group of international sports people in Monaco when the Laureus was started. And that's when he said those words, that sport has the power to change the world, break down barriers. He talks to youth like nobody else can. And he told those sports people to encourage other sports people and leaders to take sport around the world and use sport to improve the lives of children throughout the world. Laureus now has 130 projects around the world, but we also have in this country, and I think Madiba would be proud to see this today. He would be incredibly proud to see 25 projects in this country alone. It's the most projects of any country in the world in South Africa in honor of Madiba. And it is a special day today that we celebrate his 100th anniversary.
Sport has the power to change the world.
Welcome to this special episode of the Power Sport podcast. My name is Smyth. In the next 30 minutes, expect breathtaking stories of how the lives of young people have been changed. Thanks to many of those projects Morne mentioned. Please feel free to share this with your friends. The more that hear about it, the better. You can also subscribe to our fortnightly Power Sport podcast using your favorite podcast app.
My name is Ellis Park from Children of the Dawn at Puma's Center. I'm currently doing grade 12 at Sports High School. I am too much in love with rope skipping. Because rope skipping, it keeps me away from doing wrong things like drug abuse and alcohol. I also use rope skipping as a sport. Rope skipping gives me opportunities to meet other people and socialize with them. Rope skipping opens tourism opportunities for me. Rope skipping increases my geographical knowledge of the world. Rope skipping keeps me fit while having fun. Finally, I am looking forward to improve my skills on rope skipping. Thank you.
Children of the Dawn cares for more than 850 vulnerable children across South Africa. Rope skipping is one of the activities they use to boost the children's self-esteem, happiness and health. 18-year-old Claire has shown huge potential. It might even take him to America this year. It's one of the programs under the Laureus Sport for Good umbrella, and it's changing lives, something struggle icon Nelson Mandela knew all about.
Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair.
Jill Benting is the Youth Empowerment Through Sports Program Coordinator for Laureus, and she knows all about how important sport can be in changing a life filled with discouragement and pain into something rewarding and powerful. She herself is a graduate of the program, and it helped her turn her life around.
I went through a really, not the worst childhood, but I had some serious challenges very early in my life, where my father was the end all and be all of my existence at the time, was taken from me actually during my final year of high school. And it was a really sudden death. It was cancer, but he didn't have very long to live after being diagnosed. And yeah, again, I felt like just, the world could just open up and I could be swallowed into it. I was so angry and I had a lot of frustration. But people always told me, be strong. You have to be strong for your mom. You have to be strong for your sister. And because of that, I never got to deal with it. I never got to look at myself and how healthy I am at the time, or unhealthy. And because of that, we train to just keep going. It's survival every day, and it's just about making it through the day. And then, that was obviously that situation. And then at the age of 20, literally less than a month before my 21st birthday, my mom was murdered and brutally raped. So again, the rug was shooken out from under me. Again, devastation, anger, frustration, and I had no real place to actually, have a healthy outlet for it. I didn't really have much of a adolescent phase, but I guess at that time I took full advantage of the negative things in life, and to be honest, that's the ills that many of our young people go through today. So at the age of 23 at the time, I joined the YES program. And again, you learn that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to, if you feel like you need to scream, then you need to scream. It's okay to not always have everything together. We all are human and we all go through things, but obviously how we react and how we bounce back once we've been knocked down, that is what matters. So if you are low, be low, but don't stay low. My first year on YES was actually quite an experience, because I think for the first few days of the camp I was very closed off, because I always felt that everybody close to me always leaves me, and because of that I was very reluctant to let people in. Not only because I was in fear that something might happen to them, something bad, but also that I didn't want to make myself vulnerable because of that. So I had my walls built up as high as the sky. And there was this one second year student on the program, and he would not let me slip away. As soon as I saw somebody was going to come and approach me and want to get to know me and want to get my story, I would find another room to go and hide in. But there was this one second year student, and he would not let off. He was like, I know you're not ready to speak right now, but when you are, I'm here for you. And that's all he said. Like, he didn't push me, nothing. And at the one evening, we were just like having small group discussions. And that's basically where you just get to reflect on all the content and all of the sessions that you were in during the day. And it just happened that the two of us were sitting next to each other, very casually. And I just started to cry. Like, I was sobbing. And I think that was the first time that I actually allowed myself to feel, besides the void that I knew were there. It was the first time that I actually allowed myself to feel and actually allow somebody else to be there with me. And the nicest part is that he didn't sob, because that's another fear of mine. I don't want pity, you know. All I want is just to be heard and not to be judged. Like, this is how I feel at the moment, and that's it. And I didn't receive any judgment from him. He empathized with me, and he was just there. He just heard me out, and I just vented. And it felt like a huge load just off my shoulders. And I can say from that moment, I have a new pair of spectacles on when I think of life, when I think of youth empowerment, and when I think of the power of sport. And I think that is what keeps me grounded. And now to be in a position to illustrate and to actually implement a program as amazing as the YES program, it is a huge honor. It is a huge privilege for these young people to let me into their space.
The YES program aims to build up young people to become ambassadors for sport and forces of change in their communities, and there's a lot more to it than training up as a sports coach or trainer. 23-year-old Mondli Dube is a skills coach for grassroots soccer, another one of the programs. He is passionate about his community and studied sports management, and was so keen to join grassroots soccer that he dropped his CV off before he was even qualified.
I didn't even know what would happen. So, I left everything there and I graduated. It took them a year. Yeah, it was exactly a year for them to call me back. And then they called me back. They said, okay, I should come for training. Then I was so happy. I was so excited because I knew that grassroots soccer has done so much work within Soweto, because I'm from Soweto. So many kids, whenever they see the grassroots soccer t-shirts, they see role models, they see mentors, people that they can talk to about anything really. Because what we do from grassroots soccer is that we teach kids about adolescence health, and we use sports as the main medium for us to reach out, because we know, as a country, sports has played a huge role in terms of uniting us as a nation. And that's how really this story came about.
I asked him what he thought was most important when introducing children into the program.
So what we look for is children who are willing to learn, because I think we're dealing with kids from different backgrounds. Some are coming from broken homes, and some are coming from homes whereby they're probably raised by a single parent, whether it's a mom or it's a dad. So really we just want to teach. I think it's more about teaching kids how to be responsible adults when they grow, more than anything, because we know that we're living in a country whereby gender-based violence is a big problem. I was listening to the radio a week ago, and they were talking about stats about the percentage of kids who get pregnant while they're still in high school, the number of people who die in a year and they're killed by their partners, people that they're dating. So we're trying our level best to reach out to kids and teach them about such things at a very, very, very young age, so that when they grow, they won't do the same mistakes. Because as much as someone might say your background shapes you, it's not entirely true if there's someone out there who's also willing to plant a positive seed within your life and help you to become someone.
It's one thing to coach soccer, it's another thing to coach people. Grassroots makes sure that there is support and training for the trainers as well.
We are trained on how to be there for the kids emotionally, because in some situations you'd get a kid coming up to you saying that maybe I was once raped, and then as a person you need to know what to do in such a situation. Before the training I was someone who was like, okay, I found it hard for me to give someone an advice. The moment they tell you that, oh, this is happening to me, and then I'm like, I don't have any idea on what to say or what to do. But then they teach us about places where we can go for help, in terms of, let's say maybe one drinks too much alcohol, so we have places like Alcohol Anonymous whereby you can take them there. We learn more about there's this post pill after when someone is being raped, just to protect them from getting HIV and such things. So we are taught more about other organizations that grassroots soccer is working with that are able to help those kids and impact them.
Well, the greatest thing about Sport for Good is how all-embracing it is. Everyone is welcome, no matter what they are good at. Someone else who started a grassroots soccer is Yes Ambassador Annalisa Mloy. She loves soccer and she loves kids. She since moved to Waves for Change, the surf program that won the Laureus Sport for Good award in 2017, for using the power of sport to overcome violence, disadvantage, or discrimination. She's larger than life and never stops talking. She tells her story of how a girl who couldn't swim ended up a surfer.
Didn't know what Waves for Change was doing, but because I had to sustain myself, yes, I want to go back to school. I don't want to, I enjoy working with kids. I love working with kids. But I feel like I still need to go back to school and do what I want to do. I still need to do social work and fulfill the dream that I've always had of wanting to help children. So that's where I heard about Waves for Change. I applied, was called for an interview, website. Okay, this is what they do and this and this and this and this. What do I bring to the table? I didn't focus only on what they do. I thought, okay, I'm going to tell them what I'm going to bring to Waves for Change. So I went for the interview. It was a great interview because there was a familiar face. One lady used to work at grassroots soccer and I shifted to Waves for Change. So when I got there, familiar face. So during the interview, I was dead on looking at her because she's a familiar face. So lucky for that, I got into Waves for Change, and then I started working for Waves for Change in 2017 officially, but I had started training in 2016 November. So Waves for Change has been a huge growth for me personally, because yes, grassroots soccer is where I started, but Waves for Change is where I got to challenge myself in a lot of things. Grassroots soccer plays soccer, so soccer is something I used to, because I was a bit boyish when I grew up, so soccer wasn't a huge factor for me. So with Waves for Change, surfing, that's something I've never done before. I'm very comfortable in the water, but I can't swim. So that was the interviewer even told me that the fact that you were honest enough to say you can't swim, but you're very comfortable in the water is the main reason I hired you, because some other people say they can't swim. When we say swim, then they can't.
And now?
I'm a perfect swimmer. I can swim.
Are you surfing?
With the surfing there's a bit of a...
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. I'm getting there because each day I take a step further, because in the beginning I couldn't even lift myself up, but now I can lift it on my knees, one foot, and then fall on the board, and then sometimes I'm like, no, this is not for me. But each and every single day I get to challenge myself, because there's this new app that they developed. I'm the one in my side who heads that app, so I'm like the leader. Whatever questions they have pertaining the app, I'm the one who answers the questions, because I felt as if they trusted me with something that big, and me as a person as well, I'm growing, and them giving me the opportunity to apply to Laureus was a way more. It's my first time coming to Joburg. It was my first time on a flight. That's how much Laureus has done for me. And besides that, besides the benefits or whatever, me as a person, I don't know if I can say I see things differently, because each time a task is put in front of me, I don't just look at it now. I try and broaden it and see what other ideas can come from this particular task without just executing this task, but what else can come from this that wasn't asked of me. So it has broadened my mind. It has made me see things differently. And I'm very thankful for all the organizations around our community, because when I was growing up, I didn't know about grassroots soccer. Waves for Change wasn't there, because Waves for Change only came in 2010. So I wasn't aware of it back then. But now, I get to change children's lives through sport.
Kids streamed into the stadium, all wearing t-shirts from their different groups, excited to try out the different activities. A huge rack of punching bags drew a lot of attention, and the group from Fight with Insight made a beeline for it and started showing the smaller children how to use them. Fight with Insight is the brainchild of Luke Lamprecht, a bearded ball of energy who looks like an extra from the Pirates of the Caribbean. Luke had led that walk through downtown Joburg to the stadium to showcase Madiba's activities in these parts, but also to encourage people back to the inner city where the project's being run.
So what happened was about 3 years ago, I said, well, it's Mandela Day, everybody's doing the same kind of thing and everybody wants to do something for you and you kind of get inundated. So I said, no, the philosophy behind our gym is you do with us, you don't do for us. So if you're going to do something, come walk with me. And people are scared to come back into the city. So I'm trying to get people back into the city. And I say, okay, well, there's that iconic shadow box of photo. I go to the court a lot with the work I do. I know there's the Chancellor House and the statue, and I spend time around Maboneng, so I know there's the other side of it. I spend a lot of time in the fashion capital because Reese, my mate, is there. So I connected the dots in my head, which was a route I used to walk in my childhood, because we used to go downtown and we used to walk through town and then up and along the other areas. So it was kind of a stroll down memory lane for me that I then connected to honouring Mandela the sportsman, linking that to how he inspired the formation of Laureus and how he linked the struggle, like the luta continua, the struggle with the struggle for freedom, and how young people are struggling in the modern world. So it was a thought process that connected a couple of dots with a good iconic male role model, because in the gym there's only Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela pictures up. Okay, so it's these iconic people who stood up for things that were right, and that is the metaphor for the fight or the struggle to find your place in the world.
The gym he's talking about is a place where the youth come to learn fighting as a discipline.
So the idea is that we have formed a community of kind of boxing, martial arts, and the combat sports we believe have a particular influence on changing quite hard to reach people, because that being put under that amount of pressure when you're kind of boxing, you might get hurt. You've got to be able to not be overwhelmed by your emotions. You've got to be able to think while being under pressure and worried about being in pain. And we believe that it does something quite special in terms of kind of changing people's immediate responses to being under pressure. So basically the gym is premised on child and youth care work, and child and youth care is caring for children when their parents are not present. So it's a philosophy of how we care for children, and that space is actually therapeutic. So when the children come into the gym and they walk in and they look into the office, because there's 4 principles. First impressions, you need to show compassion, there's consequences to action, and you need to move forward positively. So that's Fight with Insight specific principles. So the first impression when you walk in, you've got to look into my office, you've got to greet me, there's a big Fight for Peace banner at the back. All on the left-hand side you can see is Muhammad Ali with all his quotes with his different pictures. And as you come in, an impossible is nothing as a big one. So as you come in, this is the impression. You've got to shake my hand, you've got to look me in the eye, and you've got to tell me your name so I can hear you. Okay, so in other words, I am here. All right. As they go past that, on the right-hand side, you've got child lines number. These are the rights of children. These are children's responsibilities. Here's a child safety plan. This is what child abuse is. So this is a safe place. Okay. As you go into the gym itself, there's Nelson Mandela, which I had designed by the Art Therapy Centre. There's him coming out of, so you've got the skyline of Joburg across the back with the Hillbrow Tower and Ponty, and there's Mandela coming up out of the middle of it with the 2 red gloves kind of coming out the middle, and Mandela comes in. As you turn to the left in my office, on the wall is the beginning and end point of the walk. So it's kind of located everywhere, and that's what we call engagement. So if I'm an engaging gym to come to as open access, I engage the children will come back. While they're there, I need to learn to manage their behavior so that we can care for them. And if we care for them from food to school to fitness to education, career guidance, etc., then we can assess what their needs are and we can develop them to reach their full potential. So that's the philosophy of child and youth care. And for that to work, we need belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. So young men in the inner city, our assumption is that they will either completely withdraw because the streets are dangerous, or they'll belong to gangs. So I need to offer an alternative that is authentic in the inner city to which they can belong. And they can go with their hand wraps, and the guys won't mess with them because they're the boxers. They don't have to do hand gang signs. Their hands are wrapped, they're the boxers, we leave them alone. They're still authentic. Okay, and then mastery, if you're good at something, you feel good about yourself, which relates to self-esteem. They learn to be good boxers, that improves their esteem because they've mastered something. Okay, and then independence, we want them to do things on their own, but we don't want to get children like of 10 looking after 5-year-olds. They must come box. We need to look after the 5-year-olds because we're the adults. And then the generosity, it's called the circle of courage. The generosity links to the compassion of the boxing principles, and as A.A. Milne's famous Winnie the Pooh said, Christopher Robin asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Pooh said, kind.
The values Madiba stood for is a recurring theme for Luke and has been since he was a youth himself.
Throughout my teenage years, Mandela being banned, I played a song by the Special AKA called Free Nelson Mandela, which was banned and had a big picture of him on the front, and he used to blast it right across the southern suburbs, and my mother used to say they're coming to get us. Well, the security police did come at various points to come and get us, but anyway. But the point was that he was for me a symbol of what could be just and what people are willing to give up to fight for what is just. So it's about that servitude leadership where you are willing to give up of yourself completely, truly for others, and that it's a leader that you follow because you want to be them.
Determination means different things to different people, but you can't fail to recognize it in Nkosi Mzolo. He was born in KwaZulu-Natal in the Valley of 1,000 Hills, through which runs the Duzi Canoe Marathon. He was in a canoe as soon as he was old enough to paddle, and straight after matric he came to Johannesburg and joined the Soweto Canoe and Recreation Club.
Soweto Canoe and Recreation Club, it's a club that's based in Soweto by the Twin Towers and Orlando. So there what we do is we take kids away from the street and all those who've got nothing to do, and we try to keep them away from all the alcohol and the drugs, and we introduce them into canoeing. But before we can even get to the canoeing itself, we have to be able to swim.
I was going to say.
Yes. So we've got a swimming pool that we use there. It's a municipal swimming pool. So we teach the guys how to swim, and once you see that you are swimming proficient, then we go and introduce you into canoeing.
Of course, he furthered his own studies through their bursary fund and competed in every possible race. It was also at the club where he found his passion for the work he now does as a paramedic.
When I started the whole thing, just after my matric, I didn't really know what to do. And when I was involved with the Soweto Canoe and Recreation Club, I saw a lot of the kids were picking up some injuries. And I said, okay, let me just go and start by doing like the first aid so I can be able to put like a bandage, stop the bleeding and all of that. And when I was in there, I actually fell in love with like treating people right there and there. And then I said, why not? I've got nothing else to do, let me just go for it. And I fell in love with it, and now it's my thing. It's like my office. And what I've done with mine, I said, because I'm also involved in water sports, why not go an extra mile also do like swift water rescue to assist in there. Even myself, I've been in incidents where I nearly drowned myself. And with the experience in the water, I've been able to rescue myself there. So I said, why not be there for others if they need me?
13 doozies and a few silver medals later, of course he's now chairman of the club he loves. He says it's simply given him life.
They've given me life. I'll say they've given me life. If I look back at all my mates I was with when I was in high school, 80% of them, they are into alcohol, some in drugs, and they've got nothing to point that they've made for themselves. And I've managed to scoop myself a career through with the help of the club, and now I'm a qualified paramedic, firefighter, and a rescue technician at the same time. And also I'm able to give smiles to the rest of the kids, and they look up to me. They say, no, I'm their mentor. I managed to climb up the ladder with everything that the club could throw in. I said, so it actually makes me happy.
Of course, he ran off to manage a human foosball match, but it's not foosball for which Ellis Park is famous. Edgar Rathbone is the managing director of Ellis Park Stadium. He knows there's no age limit on dreams. He kicks a ball on the field himself occasionally.
No, look, 95, I was 9 years old. So to obviously now be part of the stadium and experiencing this today, experiencing Springbok Test matches here is a dream come true. And I think that's what Laureus is about. It's getting these kids dreams and having them see something to aspire to, which is awesome.
It was very cold on the field that afternoon, even in the sunshine. But the children were so excited to play in the different sports that they didn't seem to feel it. A lot of them had no idea what historic moments happened there in 1995. Madiba walking onto the field in a Springbok rugby jersey to meet the team that went on to win the World Cup and lift the Webb Ellis Trophy in triumph. Despite that, the same sporting spirit was palpably alive on that field, in the hearts of a new generation of young South Africans. And soccer coach Morne du Plessis says that's the best part of all about working within the program.
Yeah, just looking at the kids, man, it's inspiring itself, because those people they are the future. They are the future. You don't know if you're teaching, whether you might be teaching the next president, the next minister, or whatever. You really don't know. So whenever I walk into a class or whenever I walk into the field, and then I look at these kids directly in their eyes, I see hope. I see the future.
And as the winter sun dipped behind the grandstand, we took our leave of festivities, but we met a whole lot more young people with amazing stories and whose lives have been irrevocably changed by Laureus-supported projects. And we'll be touching on some of those in coming episodes. If this podcast had piqued your interest in supporting one of these campaigns, then visit laureus.co.za for a lot more detail. And please share this podcast in your social media channels. The more people exposed to their work, the more likely they are to thrive. I'm Smyth, and thank you for joining me.